Hey everybody, thanks for stopping by my music cellar. Today I want to do kind of a comparison between two albums that I adore. And I want to hear from you guys too. If you like either artist or both artists, we'd love to hear your point of view on what I'm going to present here. Because I think the album Bring the Family by John Hiatt and the album Southeastern by Jason Isbell are two of the best albums you'll ever hear by two fabulous singer-songwriters. But they also have a few things that are really creepy in common. So I'll talk about both albums really quick, the things I like about them. Would love to hear from you. What are your favorites on these albums? What are your thoughts on the albums? But at the end, I want to talk about, I think, three things I think are just kind of eerie or creepy or just bizarre or maybe random luck. And you can tell me if I'm crazy. No, don't tell me if I'm crazy. It's the internet. I know you'll tell me that. But I'll start with Southeastern first. This album came out in 2013 with Jason Isbell. And again, I think it's just a fantastic album. I was a big fan of him with the Drive-By Truckers. He did some solo work, and I'll talk about what happened between the solo work and this album. The album really put him on the map. After this album, he became the critical darling, the Grammy darling. He's won gazillion Grammys since this album came out. Not really, but he's done very well after this album came out. And again, I am a big fan of every song on here, but the ones that stand out to me, it starts off with Cover Me Up, which is just this amazing plea. So powerful, so emotional. So Cover Me Up is amazing. And then Elephant, actually I'll back up, Traveling Alone, kind of sets the tone of this album. You know, and I'll get into the story behind the album on both of them in a second. But Traveling Alone is fantastic. Elephant, gut-wrenching. It's the only song I know that can make me cry that has the F word in it. If you haven't heard the song Elephant, definitely have a box of tissues with you if you listen to it, because it is a super tearjerker. Songs she sang in the shower, a lot of fun. All the songs are great. My personal favorite, I think, is probably Super 8. Just a high energy song that kind of features some of Jason Isbell's very clever lyrics. He's probably one of the best singer-songwriter out there right now. He has all the right words, always says the right thing. That song, I think, does a very good job of showcasing his high energy, his guitar ability, and just his use of words, because he's very good with all the lyrics. So, fantastic album. Came out in 2013. About 27 years earlier, this thing came out. John Hiatt's Bring the Family. Again, it's going to have I'll talk about the story of how this album became to be somewhat of a masterpiece and put John Hiatt on the critical map. He had albums before this that were very good, but they were never that good until this album came out. And some of the songs on here were covered by other artists, and they actually won him a Grammy or two, where he's had some Grammys since then too. But starting with this album, this was a game changer for John Hiatt. And again, for me, this is a desert island album for me. I've had it in my heart since 1986, and it gets constant plays all the time. I was lucky enough to have John sign this copy. I've seen him a lot of times as well. So masterpiece. I won't go through all the songs, but man, there's a lot. So, I mean, Memphis in the Meantime, it sets up with a really bluesy version that is just fantastic. Love that. The most famous one probably that you may have heard is Have a Little Faith in Me. Just, I think, one of the most beautiful ballads ever written. That's just, I think, if you don't know the song, it is absolutely beautiful. It's been a bunch of movies over the years. Just a fantastic song. I mentioned, oh my God, I drew a blank. Thank You Girl is a massive one for me. But I Think I'll Love, that's the one. Think I'll Love, Bonnie Raitt covered, and John Hiatt in concert usually says, that one put a lot of tires on the tour buses. I think he made a lot of money from that album, or that song, that cover. So Bonnie Raitt won the Grammy. John Hiatt made a lot of money. All good. And I think one of my favorite songs on here, again, they're all fantastic, is Learning How to Love You. So, interesting nugget. There's a line in that song. I'll come back to that song for my last interesting nugget. But there's a line in that song talking about looking at life through some cracked rear view. Okay, so that's a very memorable line. Kind of like it. Well, when Hootie and the Blowfish were trying to come up with an album title for their debut masterpiece, they were working, couldn't figure it out, and they were listening to this record and actually named their album Cracked Rear View, which I can't get on camera here. Somewhere it says Cracked Rear View. Anyway, the name of Hootie and the Blowfish's debut album that sold a gazillion copies is Cracked Rear View because of that John Hiatt song. So very interesting, right? So fantastic records, love them. Love to hear from you guys. Do you like one or both? And again, I'm gonna mention some comparisons now. Have you noticed this? Maybe I'm just making it up, but I think there's three things that are super interesting about the albums. The first one is the easy one, and it's not perfect, but I think it's real close. they kind of look the same. They both have black motifs, face shots. You have a little bit more Jason's body. You got John's hand in his face. The font is different. But in general, very common theme. You know, here's the guy singing the songs in black and white. Here's the guy singing the songs in black and white. He's a singer-songwriter. He's a singer-songwriter. Just they're similar. We can just say similar, but I think they have that in common. But the thing that really ties it together for me is kind of how they were made. I'll start with Hiatt first. Hiatt in the 70s was they had a lot of faith in Hiatt that he was going to be a famous singer-songwriter, wrote lots of good songs, but couldn't really get together because he was struggling with substance abuse. So read his book, both. I talked about his relationships at the time and the women in his life and all he was going through, but he had some serious issues with substance abuse. Met a girl, got clean, and made this ridiculous album about that experience, falling in love, being an adult now, all those things. So that was like just the thing that kind of was the turning point in his career was meeting a girl, getting sober, and making this album. Pause there. Jason Isbell, I mentioned I loved him in the Drive-By Truckers. Loved him, wrote some amazing songs. They're a party band, they drink a lot. I think he was dismissed from the band maybe for partying too much and drinking too much, which says a lot, right? And he went on to make several solo albums that were actually quite good. Liked them all. They weren't perfect, but they were really interesting. Dress Blues, for example, again, a freaking tearjerker. But again, it wasn't quite there. He also had some serious, I don't know if it was just booze or other substance abuse, but he is very open about how he has now gone through rehab, met a girl, fell in love, got clean, and then made this amazing masterpiece, kind of about that experience, about falling in love, all the things. Not about substance abuse, but just tons of things about his life changing, and then the point of his life, the trajectory in his life changing after this album. So both albums kind of have a theme of, they look similar, yeah, but they're also turning points in these guys' career. They got clean and sober, met a girl, whatever, and made brilliant records. So I think that's super interesting. Now the last thing, and I swear I looked this up, I even did math on my calculator. There's a line in that song I mentioned, Learning How to Love You. The opening line, actually, I remember hearing this in 1986 as a senior in high school. I'm old. But the line was, I'm 34 years old now and I've come to you. And I remember thinking at the time, 34 years old, God, he's old to be that young now, right? But I just remember that the line, I'm 34 years old now and I've come to you. I didn't check, but I'm assuming he was around 34 years old when he wrote that or when he made this record, okay? Jason Isbell record came out in 2013. Anybody want to take a guess how old Jason Isbell was in 2013? He was born in 1979, so he was 34 years old. You know, it's coincidence probably, but just some very cool similarities of two albums that I love and I want to share with you guys. So again, love to hear from you. Do you love Jason? Do you love John? Do you love both? What are your thoughts? Thanks for watching. If you haven't, please tell your friends and neighbors and your friends and neighbors. I need some subscribers as I try to grow my little channel. And I'll try to get more music out of the cellar and share with you soon. Thanks.